we go, everybody. It's another edition of the Cord Cutters, and I'm with the streaming expert, George Burnett from Toronto, Canada, or north in the Toronto area. I don't
Ottawa.
think I ever pinned down
actually
Ottawa.
So, you know, a little more further south, hence why it's not as coolish right now.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. And, you know, we love having our conversations as often as we do because we both love streaming. We both are really interested in cord cutting and the direction that the media is headed. And you know, it's not just a obscure technology that's affecting people, but it's something that every single person that I know of, and I'm sure you do too, George, it affects their life. You know, I mean, their cable bill
I
can be...
actually had to switch to cord cutting out of necessity when I lost a job several years ago or was laid off. No different what people are going through today with being laid off from coronavirus, and you know, they just can't pay the cable bills. So a lot of people are discovering what cord cutting is all about. So you know, it's, to me, it was a necessity. I don't know about you, but it certainly changed my life. Certainly.
Yeah, and so we concluded last week's show with the discussion of how the internet, because the internet is obviously the the foundation of how all this is going to work, where that industry is going, and you know, you and I off camera had a discussion about that, and you know, although we both claim to be the cynical of the two, I mean, you might be a little bit. Here's where I'll say you were cynical: is that your assessment of the regulation aspect of how the government's going to treat universal internet, and it's predicated on the idea that Amazon, SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, all these stories out there about them launching low-orbit satellites into space and offering universal internet, and on its face, in a utopian society, internet being as important as it is, you know, it should be available to everybody, no matter what your economic level is. And you know, I'm developing a Roku channel for a very well-known American, worldwide, I suppose, organization that deals with kids. And you know, one of the discussions was, well, if we're on Roku, that's going to eliminate, you know, a lot of the low-income families that don't have internet. And I'm going, geez, you know, everybody has internet one way or the other. I mean, there's free signals everywhere going around, but they're right to a point. If you're in a rural area, you know, and
they are.
I know Canada's what, 99% rural, right?
Might as well be.
Yeah, but you seem to think that the government's going to not, you know, make that an easy ride.
I don't think it's so much the government, Chuck, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be the big cable companies. They're going to have to learn how to adapt in the changing world of streaming TV. They're not gonna. There's gonna be a point where they won't be able to rely on the traditional terrestrial cable delivery of live channels like they used to, and so they're gonna have to shift their gears to their internet products. The problem that I'm seeing with Elon Musk's endeavors, I think it's bold. I think it's brilliant. Honestly, I think if anybody can do it, it's actually going to be him. The problem is the big cable companies are not going to let it happen easily for him. They're going to want to have all of that regulated, and they'll want to have their piece of the pie, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm speaking in general terms, because we'd have the same issue here in Canada with the two big cable comms that we have up here, but I'm willing to bet you if you look at the UK or anywhere around the world, they're going to have the same issue. But the low Earth orbit satellite internet delivery, I think is a brilliant idea. I think it's needed. And think about this also, with now the government wants everybody to go back to school, right? But how to do that safely? But the problem is if they have to do their work at home, the low income people, they need to have that infrastructure there, right? Now's the time to really think about that, and the satellite internet can be a solution for this, but it's coming. I just don't think it's going to be here as quickly as I think you think it might be here. I mean, the satellites might be out there, but now who's going to let you buy it, right? And I think there's going to be it's going to be a tough road. Personally, I'll be very surprised. And you know what? I will come on the show after it's all done, Chuck, and I will cheer a beer to you if in fact it happens a lot easier than anything. But that's kind of my take on all of this.
I don't disagree. I think that anytime, again, this is my second show in a row that I've referenced Seinfeld. But, they talked about flying cars in one episode, and they said, anytime people are up in the air, the government gets nervous. And I think it's not just the government, but the public. When you're talking about any one singular or a few organizations having control over such a powerful thing like the internet, the government is going to have to get involved. Yeah. And then you ask yourself, do you trust the government either? Or who do you trust more or least is the question. Right. The government or these private companies. So there's a lot. This is the price, I guess, for the advancements of technology. And you can ask these same questions when it comes to the cable companies, I guess, of the same, it's that Nikola Tesla invisible power energy through wireless that freaks us out when, the same trick is done with a cable or, electrical cords into your home. I think people are going to be nervous. The government's going to be nervous. The government wants to have their hands in everything to make money. Certainly, you don't want to have the communication like a country like North Korea obviously keeps their people, very locked down when it comes to receiving information. And I guess the same would apply even in the United States and Canada if a foreign entity took control over our media. I guess there's all sorts of awful things to consider, but there has to be a better way than paying what we're paying now. Yeah.
I'm all for paying for it through our taxes or like a subsidy of some sort. I think every home should have, just like the telephone, every home should have a telephone. Some of them have party lines, but it was still a telephone. So why not the internet? Like, set up a...
But was the telephone ever free? Was it ever available to anybody? I guess you had a payphone on the street, but it was never a situation where your house was automatically rigged
but it was
for
there.
A telephone.
Same thing with public Wi-Fi. It's there. Why not offer it to the low income? Put a tower near the house somewhere and, make it available, and then have the municipality put it as part of the property taxes or something like that. I don't know, but everybody is entitled to internet, in my opinion. It's doable, but I really think the cable companies / the internet companies, they're going to make it difficult for that to happen unless they get their piece of that pie. But listen, this is wishful thinking. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that, with the upcoming situation with when they figure out that a lot of kids are going to be left out because they can't learn from home, and, that I really think, this coronavirus thing for a lot of situations, including streaming and, trying to deal with all of this, is going to put a lot of lawmakers on notice that something needs to get done. I hope this is one of them. I'll be honest. I think it's needed, and I think it's the right thing to do. And, there's ways to pay for it. It's a doable thing. There's no reason why it can't be.
I'd be curious to know just how unaccessible the internet is for low-income families where, again, I think it is probably one of those things where we want to stereotype that low-income families don't have access or can't afford it when, maybe we're talking about that when it comes to a high-end vehicle or vacations or something. But, schools have had, you've had to be pretty web savvy to be in schools in the last 15 years, elementary schools, through emails with your teacher and,
kids
homework.
Are smart. Kids are smart. They figure it out. The problem is the accessibility for it. To answer your question, Chuck, I think it's a lot more prevalent of the inaccessibility of it than I think even I realize, that all of us realize. Just looking at the recent events, I think it's not just about how to bring people to school early or like safely, but if they have to stay at home, how are we going to do it so that our kids aren't left behind, right? And I think there's a lot more of that than there is of the accessibility. I think there's a lot less accessibility than we think. But it's very interesting research. I'll
interrupt a little bit. I know that in the southwest of the United States, in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, I have family in Arizona, and the kids there, middle school, high school, have been in a homeschool situation with the public school system for a good while now. They've mainly because you might be 60, 70 miles away from school, and also too the cost of cooling the schools in hot areas like that with air conditioning and stuff. There's probably more of a template to go by. And I think we referenced this earlier on. It'd be interesting. We're a first world, Canada and United States, first world countries. Third world nations have been streaming almost longer, I think, than anybody. You have a lot of places in the islands and India and remote areas of China that have been streaming because they didn't have to go from a cord. They didn't have any cord to cut, I guess is the point, So,
but that should be the model we should look at. The problem why that's problem here, because we don't have it here, I say here, North America, first world countries, is because I go back to my original cynical point. I don't think the cable companies are going to make it easy for that to happen. Because we would have it by now. I think. I think that the low incomes families, they would have this by now if it was acceptable by the major companies because they'd be offering it, right? Why not offer it and earn a little bit from that? That's my take on it. And
I wouldn't call that cynical. How's that? I don't think it's that cynical. I think you're spot on. Yeah. I do think, and I could be wrong here, that we're going to see a little bit of a spike in the price, and then it's going to start to come down because of, I think you'll see the spike as a threat because a lot of people will continue. I've read, industry trade articles that cable companies are basically sticking the screws to you if you eliminate your cable and your phone, and they're jacking up the internet price. But I think at the end of the day, that kind of price gouging will be something that will work itself out. So hopefully it'll be something that is a little bit more affordable. I think overall, though, if you're cutting your cable and you're going to streaming exclusively, even if there is a 20% increase in the amount you pay for the internet, you should still be doling out less each month. Hopefully,
I'm totally with you. I absolutely agree.
All right. Well, it wouldn't. This is your time right now to throw away that cynical attitude and send everybody off a happy.
Chuck, it was another great conversation. I enjoyed that one, and thank you for everybody for joining in, and everybody happy streaming.